afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this afternoon. Happy Veterans Day and soon to be happy Thanksgiving. So my name is Andrea Pratt-Smith, and I'd like to personally welcome you and thank you for joining us on this, our Bahamas Project Management Community Meetup. We like to get started with a quick icebreaker so we can get to know you. What we want to do is, if you feel comfortable enough to come on camera, let us know your name and if this is your first time joining us, and what do you expect to get from this meetup. So that's 3 things: your name, if this is your first time or not your first time, and what you expect to gain from this particular meetup. And just so you know, if no one volunteers to speak, I will start calling. Melissa. Hi, Melissa, how are you?
I knew that you were going to call me. I felt it. I just knew it.
You knew it, right?
I did. However, I'm not in a position to turn my camera on, but I'm very excited to be here. And I read Jason's bio, and I was like, okay, I think this is something that I need in my life right now. So I made myself available.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Is this your first time coming to one of our meetups?
Well, I guess, yes, I think so. Yeah, it is my first time. So his bio was very intriguing because, you know, Thursday nights is just not my night. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is going to work for me tonight.
Okay, well, thanks for taking the time out of your usual busy schedule to join us tonight. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And we're gonna now move on to Kenny. Kenny, you came off camera briefly because I know you want to say something. Unmute.
Sorry, just general introduction. Good night, everybody. Kenny Markey, a regular around here. Always love the meetings.
All right, glad to have you back with us, Kenny. Then we have Sonia. Sonia, is this your first time with us?
Hi. Hi, yes, this is my first time. I just was keen on knowing more about project management as I'm transitioning to my current position. So yeah, that's the reason I'm here.
Okay, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Boston.
Okay, great. We have a visitor from Boston. Welcome, Sonia. And Caroline.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As fatigued as I am mentally, I had to log in. I'm still on the road, heading home. So I'll be tuning in. Welcome to those joining us from abroad. And good night, fellow project managers, Bahamas project managers.
Yes, ma'am. Bahamas Project Management. Thanks for joining us again, Caroline, and please drive safely. And then we are going to call on Sophia. Sophia, would you like to speak?
Very briefly, just to say hello. Same here. Not my first meeting, but always love the speakers. So good to see everyone else again.
All right. Thank you, Sophia. And Markwin.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Always a pleasure to be here. Just forgive me in the background. So I'm trying to lay back a little bit here. But I will be here listening attentively and look forward to having a great meeting.
All right, thank you. I think that covers everyone on screen. But no, I didn't touch on Omar.
Hi, Jason. Welcome. I'm Omar. I am one of Andrea's sidekicks, and obviously always eager to learn and see what I can, how I can use the information that you're going to share with us.
Thank you, Omar. Omar's a regular. He's part of the team. Omar, Sonia, and Markwin, and Jackie. There are some of the team members who are here supporting. And so, Jason, before we leave our icebreaker, since there's only a few of us here now, you can say something about yourself.
Yeah, Jason Orloske, first time. I am in Fargo, North Dakota, and yes, it is raining and snowing here. It's 33 or 32 degrees, so it's pretty cold. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here, meet everybody, talk about project management and strategic development, just share some of my experiences and answer any questions that you would have along the way. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So that concludes our icebreaker. We covered just about, we've covered everybody that's here early, on time, I should say. So those who come afterwards, they'll have to introduce themselves at another meetup. So now, Jackie, you can start us off in a word of prayer. Jackie, I hope your audio is fixed. I think Jackie is still freezing.
Yeah, she's still frozen.
She's still frozen. Okay, well, I'll pray. Let's go. Heavenly Father, God, thank you for another opportunity to come before you in the Bahamas project management community. Lord, we thank you for all of those who are in attendance and for those who are on their way. We thank you for our guest, Lord, our presenter, who is going to impart knowledge on us today about project management and strategic leadership, God. May you equip him with the words to say so that we can accept what is for us to receive tonight. Lord, we ask that you will continue to bless this community, that you would have us do your will, and that we would continue to seek what it is for you and for the benefit of your kingdom. We ask that you would give us grace, mercy, and divine favor in all that we say and we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So Jackie was supposed to have done the prayer, and Jackie was supposed to have read the speaker's bio, but she's having some audio problems. And so we go to if then else in project management. So Jackie keeps dropping in and off the call. So I think Jackie has internet connection issues tonight. So without further ado, we're going to read the speaker's bio. Hopefully someone from the team has that on hand, because I do not.
Or I can introduce myself too once we get into the presentation, Andrea. It's totally up to you.
Okay, well, Jackie looks like she's ready. I don't want Jackie to miss out on her role.
On her moment.
Yes. So Jackie, are you? No, she's frozen again. Omar, she's frozen, right? Okay.
Yeah, she's frozen.
All right. So she's moving in slow motion. Jackie, we're gonna have to pass on you reading this bio. So Jason, you can introduce yourself, because I sent out your bio today. That's how come everyone's here and they're interested.
Cool. Well, I'm sharing my screen, so you should see it here in just a second. Does everybody see it? Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, first I'll get to my my bio here in just a second. Oh man. Sorry, my screen is doing something. Okay. I think I got it covered now. I apologize. Okay, there we go. All right, so do me a favor for starters. So first, can everybody write down what their company's #1 goal is, a strategy to meet that goal? How are you contributing? Or, kind of to Melissa's point, if you want to do like a personal goal or something that you want to do in life, write down what that goal is. Maybe you have a strategy in place, and then what are some of those things that contribute. So why don't we take a minute and just maybe write down a couple bits of information. And if your answer is, well, I don't know, that's a legitimate answer too. So I'll give everybody just a minute. All right, well, hopefully you had we're able to write something down. So, project management is more than just that iron triangle of trying to keep on time, trying to keep in scope, keep our quality what it needs to be. So really it's evolving. There's getting to be a lot more than just that traditional project management work that we've seen in the past. According to a 2018 survey, 80% of leaders feel that their company is really good at creating strategy, but only 44% at its implementation. A whopping 67% of strategies fail due to poor execution, and even worse, 95% of employees don't even understand their organization strategy. Like Dilbert, the Dilbert cartoon, which I love to read, is, how does this project fit into our strategy? A lot of companies don't even know what their strategies are. And sometimes you can ask management, they have no clue. So the speed of business, it's only going to get faster and faster. New innovations that are implemented today are obsolete in months, sometimes even sooner. Change is constant in our companies, on our projects, and project professionals really need to understand the why. Why is this project being done? How does it contribute to that bigger organizational picture? What business goal or strategy is this supporting? So that's that's what project professionals need to start understanding more and more. And what we'll cover today is, what is strategy? Why is it important? How do leadership knuckleheads come up with strategy? And I'll tell you the story behind that one a little bit. And then, communicating strategy, how to effectively communicate it to employees, and then how project management professionals like yourselves impacts strategy and helps amplify it. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is just based on my experiences that I've had in participating and leading strategic sessions and implementations. I'm going to talk a lot about generalities of strategy. There's a lot of frameworks out there: Porter's 5 Forces, EOS, OGSM, Hashin, list goes on and on. If you want to know about a specific framework, definitely Google it. But I'm just going to keep it pretty generic for this conversation. And really, my objective here today is to give you information so you can go tomorrow, talk to your leadership or to your project sponsor, to others at your company, and just talk about how these projects align with strategy and be able to ask different questions. If you ever want to get noticed at work, especially with the executive team, start asking about strategy. Trust me, they will take notice pretty soon. And as I'll share too, this can also be applied to your personal lives when you want to achieve goals and create strategies to do so. So as I mentioned, I'd have an introduction. Jason Orloske, Fargo, North Dakota, where it's cold and snowy, but I am 20 years an accidental project manager. And I say accidental because I had no intention of being a project manager when I started my career. I was actually in data acquisitions and conversions back when we were, this thing called the internet was just coming around. So I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. We were working with this project manager who was just terrible. Nobody liked him. He would threaten us, tell us we're going to get fired, show up every week, tell us what to do, tell us we're doing a bad job, and he'd leave. So I ended up saying something that got me in a little bit of trouble, but also got me to finish the project that we were working on. That was March of 1999. So ever since then, I've been leading progressively larger projects, programs, including global efforts of up to 100 onshore and offshore teams. I've led 4 project management offices, including the one I'm consulting for right now. I've had 2 executive level interim roles. I own my own consulting business and working on another consulting business. Frequent PMI presenter, author, blogger, and I'm also ultra runner, ultra biker. So I think my ultra days are done for 2021, but hopefully next year we'll be off to the races once again. I got into strategy back in 2009 when I led my first PMO, and I asked the CIO who I reported to that, hey, I hear you're going to the strategy session. Can you tell me more about it? And he goes, no, because you're coming with me. So that started my strategic journey back in 2009. So as I mentioned, the story behind the knuckleheads. So this came about, I'd say, 3 years ago. I was an interim VP of operations for a biotech company. And we were very small. We had a couple different offices, one here in Fargo, and then in Canada and the Netherlands, all pretty small. And so we had created this strategy, the executive team did. So I flew to Canada right away, and since they were our biggest location, we said, hey, we're going to implement this strategic initiative. They had 2 project managers there, a lead and then more of a junior PM. So I was telling them, hey, we're going to do this project. And the lead PM kept saying, well, why are we doing this project? I said, it aligns with strategy. So I'd talk more about it. He goes, why are we doing this project? I said, it aligns with strategy. And so after this took place about 3-4 times, he finally stopped me and he goes, how do you knuckleheads come up with strategy anyway? And I almost wanted to say, because it aligns with strategy. But it made me realize that, hey, as a leader, I was not doing a very good job communicating what our company strategy was in a way that was simple to understand, and that the employees could understand what the big picture is, and then how they as individuals could contribute to success. So that was a great question. And again, as a leader, I really had to take a step back and say, how am I going to communicate this with our employees? So that's how this presentation came to life. Those few years ago is when somebody called me a knucklehead. So let's start with, what is strategy? Well, if you think of strategy as, it's really a plan for success. It's how we'll be successful. Think of it as an action plan that creates a shared understanding by which all your future decisions are made. So if you as a project professional understands what the strategy is, the project you're working on, and how that fits into the bigger picture, if an issue comes up, which it inevitably does, that can help you make decisions to keep things going and keep it on track. It also creates common language, so those buzzwords like efficiency, growth, scalability, they actually mean something. They're just not words that get tossed around. And it's strategy is made in times of uncertainty. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's gonna be happening. Supply chain issues, COVID, change in market direction, consumer preferences, all that plays into it as we start to get into our strategic initiatives. And these are really a collection of intentional decisions. To make a strategy means you have to decide to do something and decide not to do something else. And strategy really answers 4 I'll call them the how questions. So first, how do we outperform the competition? How do we compete differently in a market without focusing too much attention on what they do and try to copycat them, finding the niche and that competitive advantage over our competitors? How do we respond to change? Again, consumer preferences, market changes, or my new favorite has been internal reorganization and people quitting and new people coming in with all types of new ideas. Managing functional pieces of the business is really around your operational effectiveness. How can we be more efficient, effective in what we do in our day-to-day? And then, of course, improving the financial situation. Every company's got somebody that wants to make money. So whether it's investors, you as employees, you want to do good financially, increase those margins, increase those revenues. Either you get a bonus or you get, dividends back on shares or some kind of ownership. But at the end of the day, you really, really want to increase your financial performance as a company. Another why strategy is so important, the goal is to have a healthy organization and working environment. So I got a list here, but if you think of, think of them in negative terms. So, if you don't know what your priorities are, you get frustrated and confused about what that number one thing is supposed to be. You get too much work. You're working 60, 70 hours a week. Morale goes down, turnover increases, office politics run rampant because everybody's trying to get their projects done without going through any processes or anything like that because they don't know how else to do it. But those healthy companies that know their priorities, where if you walked up to an employee and said, hey, what's the number one thing you're working on? And boom, they can answer it like that. Those are pretty healthy companies because they know what they're supposed to be working on. There's no frustration about multiple priorities. Well, there might be some, but there's not a ton. The morale goes up because they know how they're contributing. Turnover is lower. And then office politics, it's not there. It's probably there to some degree, but probably not as much because everybody knows what they're working on. And this is a quote that I love from Patrick Lencioni from The Advantage. If you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. Creates so much clarity that there's little room for confusion, disorder, and infighting. So if there's no clarity, trust me, I've seen it in many companies in my consulting days that, the infighting and disorder, it'll be something. So who are these strategic knuckleheads? Who are the people that come up with these strategies? Well, I will tell you, they're a small group. I recommend they're a small group of no more than 12 people. I've been in rooms with as few as 4 and with as many as 24. And I'll tell you that the group of 24 got nothing done in 2 days' time. The group of 4 got the same, got a lot done in half a day. The smaller, the better. Very cross-functional, representing the major parts of the organization. They ask questions, and they do this to understand what the other person is trying to convey what they're talking about, not to form a rebuttal and tell them that they're wrong. They engage in intellectual conflict, and I say intellectual because it's focused on the goal, not the person who is talking. So they're able to speak freely in an open dialogue. They put their ego aside, they trust one another, and it's okay to speak up and challenge other people. And then at the end of the day, they commit. So everyone walks out of the room committed to the direction. Nobody's stabbing each other in the back as they're walking down the hall and saying, well, I didn't agree with that, or telling their team something different. They are committed, they are aligned. Teamwork at this level is really hard to achieve, but it is a strategic choice by the company. So how do these knuckleheads come up with strategy anyway? Well, there's some prerequisites. I used to think that all these were necessary for a company to come up with strategy, but I would say only a couple are truly, truly needed. One of those is your mission statement. Why do we exist? If you have a vision statement of where you want to be in the future, great. If not, but I do stress the mission statement. Guiding principles are a company's core beliefs. It guides a company through its life. I really like these because if you're picking projects later on that kind of go away from those guiding principles, it could be a challenge later on. SWOT analysis is great. Your strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, threats, that little, what do you want to call it? The square with the crossbar in it. I had the name, but now I forgot. But it really gives you a summarized view of the current position. And there's also something called a PEST that's out there. And then finally, and the most important, is the goal. Now, a goal, this could be for your company, this could be for you as a person. It's a dream. It's a dream about what you want, not about how you're going to get there. So I've had, when I started my own company, my goal was to, help companies get through the fog of their project management that they had. So, and I've been refining it over years, but it was a goal that I initially had. In my own personal life, I had a goal to do an ultra distance biking event which I signed up for, created a strategy for, and then completed that back in August. So it's really what you want to achieve, and it can be broad and intangible. It's more of a narrative, a descriptive that you talk about. And if for your work, it could be for your whole company. If you're working for maybe a smaller company, it could be for a division, department. It could be at all those levels, depending on the group that you work for, and it could be for yourself. But having a big goal is what strategy is built off of. So then as you define that goal, you figure out, okay, what type of strategy do we need in place to actually achieve this? Is it a growth where we're going into new markets, diversifying existing markets with new products, new services? So are we trying to grow, or is this stability where we're trying to preserve our profits, reduce costs, invest into future possibilities? And another one of my favorites is compliance and regulatory, because I spend a lot of time in the healthcare industry. I spend a lot of time in stability strategies. Or is it retrenchment? And this is in response to an unprofitable element of the business. It could be trying to reorganize an element of the business or the company as a whole. But it really helps to aim for financial stability while you're going through that retrenchment piece. And once you kind of figure out what type of strategy, then the executives will start to look at the value chain. I love the value chain because every company has it, whether it's formalized or not, but it's really a set of activities. It's got all the functions in it. And there's two main parts, your supportive and your primary. All your competitive advantage for a company comes from this value chain. And any change that happens in the supporting activities affects primary and vice versa. So if you have a better procurement department that can get parts or anything sooner, I mean, we're all struggling with that right now, then some of your logistics areas can make things more efficient. But if things go down in logistics or go down in the support activities, I mean, it affects everybody across the board. So the value chain is a very important aspect to look at. And then focusing on that systematic growth. So one of the best problems companies have is if they grow too fast, but it's also a problem. And that's one of the companies I'm working with right now. They actually tripled when they thought they were only going to go up 10%. Good problem to have. Bad problem to keep your customers satisfied because you are growing too fast. So what segments of the business will grow? What areas of the value chain are going to be impacted? And then what proportionate timing? You want to make sure that you're specific. So if your goal is to increase sales, but that's really not specific. But if you want to increase sales of your top 3 products by 15% by the end of Q4 2021, now that's a metric you can tie into. And then the executive teams will want to remain flexible and look ahead. And this is a quote that I have from one of my old bosses when we were talking about strategy. So think of it as taking a bus. The destination stays the same, the route will change. So our strategies were always 3 years ahead. So we were looking beyond that quarter by quarter. So as we were creating the strategies, we knew that things were going to change. We had action plans that got us from A to B, but sometimes something would change, the market would change, products would change, consumer preferences. So we'd have to take different routes, but eventually we would get to the strategy that we wanted to achieve. So, looking ahead, remaining flexible, that's always key when executives start to come up with what their strategies are. All right, then finally, it's all about trade-offs. So being unique at one thing means you're not going to do something else, that you're going to focus on one particular market or consumer segment or whatever that is. You're going to focus on that, but you're not going to focus on this. So like in my own business, for example, I only focus on small to medium-sized companies. I don't do any work with startups. In my opinion, they're more product-focused. I just kind of let them, do their thing as they start to grow. I get a lot of requests to go help them, but right now I'm not going to service that market. And that kind of goes along with the other one of, to make one happy customer, you have to make other customers maybe a little bit unhappy. So I want to make the customers that I service really, really happy. And the other ones, man, they may not like me, and that's okay. But those are trade-offs that I need to make while I'm coming up with what those strategies are going to be. All right, communication. So this goes back to that project manager that called me out. As part of that, as I mentioned before, 95% of employees do not understand their organization strategy. And that really falls to very poor communication by those companies and those company leaders. So one thing I've learned is, I thought this was a good picture. One simply does not talk about strategy without complicating it. If you've ever looked at a corporate strategy, especially some of those big Fortune 500 companies, they're insanely complicated. I mean, they really are. They're hard to follow. Nobody understands it, and you just kind of lose sight of what it is that they're trying to achieve. That CIO that brought me to my first ever strategy meeting had a rule, because every functional area had to have their own strategies. I was in charge of communicating ours to our entire IT group. And the rule was each strategy couldn't be more than 3 bullet points long and no more than 7 words per bullet. It had to be very, very simple. And every strategy had to be tied to the mission of the company so that there was a deeper meaning for the employees. And once we communicated this, he made sure that everything was printed, put on the wall. Everybody knew what the strategy was and how us as an IT organization within the company contributed to success. It was free, it was simple, and it was a great tool that we use to make decisions going forward. But when it comes to communicating strategy, you always got to keep it simple. And this was a fun conversation I had about 6 months ago with the CEO. And I asked him, so, why don't you communicate your company strategy? And he looked me in the eye and said, I don't share my company strategy with my employees because they're going to put it on social media and my competition will know within an hour what my strategy is and beat me to it. And that was his legit concern. So we ended up trickling out strategic information, but I'll tell you this much. We asked that everything be kept confidential. Nothing was shared externally, and his employees knew what was going on. So they had a very good sense of, hey, this is the direction we're going. Here's what's a priority for our company. And they felt really good about it. Leaders shouldn't be afraid to share their strategy with their people. But again, going back to just do it in simple terms. I mean, executives are strategic teachers, and they should enthusiastically talk about what the strategy is, not hold it back from their people. All right, so I have talked about how executives come up with strategy, why strategy is important, just the different aspects of it, some of those inputs to making those strategic decisions. Now, this is where you, the project professionals, this is where you come in and you really make a difference. Remember, 67% of strategies fail because of poor execution. This is where you can make up for the rest of it and really help drive those strategies to complete. So you'll hear this all the time in the term strategic alignment. You talk to a manager, you talk to somebody else, anybody in the company, they'll say, oh, it's strategic alignment. I'll tell you, and I've gotten in trouble for saying this, but strategy has no effect on organizational performance. Normally what happens is your executive team takes off for a few days to an offsite, they live it up, they come up with the strategy, everybody comes back so excited that, hey, we're going to grow the company 50%. Here's our strategy to do it. The next day, reality hits, nothing gets done for however length of time. So strategy really doesn't have any effect on your organization, but aligning the activities to the strategy, now that's where it makes all the difference. So you may be saying, hey, why a cup of coffee on the pitcher? Deciding you want a cup of coffee, that's your strategy. I drink a pretty fair amount, I'll be honest. So, when I want a cup of coffee and I say, okay, I want that, that's my strategy. Getting up and making that cup of coffee, well, that's aligning my strategy to the activities to get it done. And these are the initiatives that really help deliver value. But to do that, it all starts with your portfolio level. So I'm not sure, I don't know if anybody is a portfolio manager or in charge of prioritizing the projects, but it's very important to prioritize those projects. So you probably have more projects in the hopper than you got people to do them or time to get them done. So prioritize what makes the biggest impact on what those strategic goals are. When are we going to do them? When are the right times to get them done? Do we have the right resources, whether it be people, equipment, machinery, licensing, whatever that would be? Do we need to get more? Do we need to hire? Do we need to staff aug? So a lot of those decisions at the resource level. How do we do this with minimizing risk? Global supply chain issues. Can we get things in the right amount of time? Can we get people in the right amount of time? We're all having some hiring issues right now as well. So how do we do this without putting the company at risk, especially on the financial front if something is going to cost a lot of money? And then keeping track of those key metrics. I do warn on the key metrics. Every company needs to have some metric in place as they deliver their projects, but don't be so stuck on them that everybody shoots for the metrics to meet those, but misses other things along the way. And then project professionals really are good at the tactics, right? Activities to achieve a strategy, way to plan, coming up with a plan, how everything is going to be delivered, and developing your best practice. I like this picture, and I've used it for many, many years, where if you think about taking a boat somewhere, so your strategy is taking the river. The tactic is using a boat. Well, what kind of boat? Well, it could be a canoe, power boat, whatever it would be. You have mountains on one side and a desert on the other. Both those present risk. Both those present distractions. So being able to keep track of those external forces around you that may knock your strategy off course. And really, best practices are your strategic advantage to deliver projects, deliver results to your organization. All right, and then amplifying strategy. So project professionals amplify strategy by talking about how the project aligns with your organizational goals. I always tell the project managers that work for me what the strategy is that they're supporting. And the reason is they can explain it to their teams, they can explain it to their stakeholders, or anybody else that they come in contact with. They put it on their status reports, but really it keeps those strategic initiatives front and center, so everybody understands what they are and drives down to the individual level how they contribute. So I always feel that project managers are great at amplifying strategy as well as the projects that we're working on. Okay, now, I don't know if we got a chat function or anything, but I would love it if people flip over your cards and did anybody write anything down? And you don't have to write down what it was, but did you write anything down, or did you say, I have no clue?
In my case, I'm not going to mention what I wrote. I'll go to other people. So we have Sophia Walker, who said her strategy equals to build good relationships with clients using tools that help to meet their needs. Sonia wrote increase sales, include new in-house products for customers, sorry. Jackie wrote to get new clients and retain them. and that was it. And in my case is increase profits via creation of new tools and increase the usage of current existing tools.
Nice. I didn't write it down, but I do ask my clients, and the one right now I'm leading the PMO, what their organizational strategy was, and they told me don't worry about it, but you need to be SDLC, software development lifecycle, compliant within 2 months. So that was basically my goal. So I had to come up with my own strategies to get it done. So yeah, thank you for sharing those. That was great. Oops, all right, so tomorrow when you go to work or talk to your boss or talk to your sponsor, just ask them, you know, how does this project that we're leading right now, how does this align with strategy? You know, how is this competing in the market? Where does this fit into our company's mission? How does this fall into the value chain? What data is being used to create the strategy? What kind of segment growth are we looking for? How can I help communicate this with my team? I'll tell you that your management, your boss, or your sponsor, I mean, they'll take notice. They love to talk about strategy because a lot of project managers don't. So they'll be happy to share that, and you'll definitely get noticed more and more. All right, so with that, that is the end. Thank you very much. Yeah, and let's take any questions.
Jason, if you don't mind, before we take the questions, if you could stop sharing and everybody turn on their cameras so we can take a quick picture so that we can document today's session.
Trying to stop sharing. Oh, there it is. There we go. Sorry, I had too many screens.
No worries, you're good. Okay, so I'm going in 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And we are good to go. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, now that we are past our picture session, we will enter into our Q&A. So does anyone have a question for Jason? Kenny always has questions. Come on, Kenny.
And it can be more than just strategy. If you just have general project management questions, we're happy to answer anything, really.
Kenny has 3 questions. That's his
okay, good.
Time. 3 questions, Kenny.
I'm ready, Kenny.
Hey, Jason, great presentation. Thanks again. Some scenario that you painted, and I just wanted to guess if you could give a little more detail into it. So I'm a part of a sales team, and the prior institution I was a part of likewise. When it comes to sharing strategy with the organization, naturally you want to keep persons in the loop, but competition is a serious thing. So I found like our business development department, they used to always keep us on the loop when it came to advertisements and future promotions. And we often would find these things out after the general public, like after it's already exposed to the public, then we tend to find these things out after the fact, or even customers telling us or asking us about a promotion after the fact. I understood, yeah, it's crazy. And I understood somewhat the logic, because naturally you don't want internal persons leaking things out, whereas the competition gets the jump. But at the same time, keeping your own persons on the inside aware and knowledgeable where they can be effective as well. So if you could, I guess, comment on finding that balance.
Yep. No, that's a good question. I've worked with a couple of sales teams, and I've come into a very similar situation where the sales team attrition was very high. So sharing of detailed information was very low. So they were experiencing a lot of what you were talking about. One of the things that a new sales manager did was he looked at it trying to remember what he called it, themes. He had certain themes by quarter. So, you know, this quarter we're going to go after this type of a theme. You know, next quarter was this theme. And then he would start to break it down into more details as far as what, you know, what those individual offerings, product offerings were going to be. He did share out about a month in advance, but nothing more than that. So that way the sales team, you know, the sales and marketing team were working together, then sharing that with inside sales, outside sales. So everybody was aware of it, but it was, I would say, no more than a month in advance. That would be a good question to ask, you know, your manager too. If you see that these sales go out, could they share the strat, you know, maybe some of those offerings a week in advance, so you have time to understand what they are, ask questions, kind of understand that bigger picture of how does this contribute to our overall sales organizational goals. And then, yeah, and then how can we service our customers better without being caught off guard when somebody says, hey, I see you offered this. Oh, really? So, yeah. Yeah, that'd be a little bit tricky one, but yeah, that's, I guess that would be the direction I would start to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jackie has a hand raised. Jackie, you have a question?
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Jason. I hope my internet holds up.
Okay.
Oh, it's doing pretty good right now, but great presentation as it relates to
Thank you.
strategy. I'm a part of a nonprofit here on the island in the Bahamas, and my role is I'm the PMER officer. I know that's a lot. Planning, monitoring, evaluating, reporting.
Okay.
And my goal is to we have various projects that are going on within the organization. And so I'm supposed to be the eyes to make sure that every project is aligned with the strategy. We have a strategy 2030, and these are goals and things that we want to do until 2030. You mentioned the types of strategy, and which I found very interesting as it relates to growth, stability, retrenchment. My question is, how and when do I apply or be able to decide which strategy, whether it's growth, whether it's stability? How do you determine that within a project? I hope my question came up.
So I think you broke up a little bit, but I would tell you that
internet go out?
When you were asking,
I'm not sure if you heard the last part of it. Oh, okay.
But I think you determine what kind of strategy it's going to be up front, and then the project would align then to that strategy, whatever it would be. So, you know, if you're going to have a growth strategy by doing, so I'll give you an example, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind. So I work with consult with a nonprofit here in Fargo that works with people that are returning from the federal prison system that are going in to get new jobs. So he didn't know how to grow this thing. He had all types of ideas. So we kind of started looking at, okay, what is it that you want to achieve? So we started with that goal process of, okay, what's your goal? So we came up with that, and then we came up with 4 different strategies. One was growth, one was more stability, and one was retrenchment. Actually, 2 were growth. So those were our strategies, and we even labeled them as such. And then as we started to dig down into each of those strategies, so one of the growth strategies was to have community housing for people that are returning. So they could stay there for 6 months while they got back on their feet, got jobs, got reestablished. And so that was one of the growth pieces. And then we had a number of projects underneath that growth initiative. And we labeled those projects as part of that growth initiative as well. So that way it was very, very clearly defined, but it was also prioritized because he had a lot of ideas and he had like 100 projects, and we themed those 100 project ideas into like 10, and then prioritized after that. So when we started kicking them off, we knew what strategy that we were going to be aligned up to. Same with the retrenchment. There was something that they were doing, it wasn't working. So we had two options: either just stop doing it or to take a step back, kind of refigure it out and move forward again. So we did let's take a step back. We put in a couple of initiatives to see if we could retrench it. It didn't work. So they ended up just dropping that service offering to put his resources into more growth initiatives. But so did that answer, kind of answer your question, Jackie?
Yes, that was very helpful. And this is definitely something I want to understand a lot more, because I believe that it can help me a whole lot. Because usually whenever a department head has an idea, technically I'm supposed to be there alongside with them to hear the idea and to make sure, okay, is this going to work for the organization? And I have to ask those hard questions. So sometimes they look at me like cross-eyed, but there are questions and different things that I have to ask as a PMER officer to make sure we're not just doing a project just to go out there and say we're doing something.
We're doing it.
But
yeah.
And you talked about a benefits analysis, which I don't think I've heard of that before. I definitely want to learn more about it. And my question is, what kind of impact is this going to make in the community? You know, if we have a feeding program, which we do, we're not just going to go out there and feed individuals, but there has to be a lot more behind it so that we're making a greater impact long term.
Mm-hmm. So Jackie, my assumption is you're probably, and especially in the nonprofit world, I love the nonprofit world because there's a lot of people who are big thinkers. They have tons of ideas, but they're also big thinkers that have tons of ideas, and they're probably throwing ideas at you constantly. So if you want to connect, I have a template that I actually built, an Excel template that captures ideas, puts themes behind them, more information. So that way you can keep a running list of all the ideas that get tossed your way probably on a daily basis. And you can start to bucket those into, you know, what those common themes are. Because chances are, you know, 10 ideas can be boiled down into one project. So that's what has helped us in some of the groups I've worked with, just kind of pull those ideas, multiple ideas, into more of something you can track and bucket. So yeah, if you want to connect, I'll be happy to share that with you, Jackie. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else have a question? Kenny, you have 2 more questions to go. Okay, I have a question since Kenny is thinking about his other 2 questions.
Okay.
Jason, you talk a lot about themes and you talk a lot about value. When you go into organizations, are they agile organizations that have undergone agile transformations, or do you find that they are traditional project management ran organizations, or like what are you experiencing?
I'm experiencing more of the matrix type organizations, or those that say they're going through an agile transformation and have really not gone through an agile transformation. So I'll say this about agile. There's two definitions of agile for me. One's more important than the other. So the first one is agile as a mindset. So can you pivot? Can you understand that project change is going to happen, or corporate change is going to happen? Can you turn on a dime when COVID happens, or your project is, you know, the project doesn't make sense anymore? Are you okay saying this project is done, even though we're going to just terminate it, even though we haven't released it? So there's a lot of that agile thinking just to, hey, we can pivot at any point and change direction as we need to. Until you can think more agile, you will never adapt agile as a process. And so agile, from a process standpoint, thanks, Omar. Agile is an ambiguous word. So when somebody says agile process, I ask them, well, what? Scrum, are you talking Scrum? Are you talking XP? I mean, agile is a word, it's not a process. It's more of a product delivery, approach. So tell me what you mean by agile. So I think there's so many definitions and so many approaches out there that until a company can start with the mindset of agile, don't even talk about the process of agile. I have found that those that have wanted to do things more agile approach, and they're just not ready for it. We'll put together your traditional waterfall type of project plan, but do more of the, okay, let's focus on 2 weeks or 4 week sprints. 2 weeks is really hard for people. So I usually start with 4. I don't call them sprints, I call them iterations. So changing up some of that verbiage, not a daily scrum, but a daily touch base. So understanding what the culture is, what it can handle, what their definition is, it takes a little bit of time, and you're probably banging your head against a wall quite often, but it's something you got to ask. But yeah, I do see more of maybe the matrix, more traditional functional, and that's also in the companies that I work with too. But even in a lot of the startup land, some are more agile than others.
Okay, well, I just got from your presentation and some of the words that you use and your jargon, yep. It resonated with me because I just completed a Safe 5 Agilist training course. Yep. And so when you start to talk about strategic themes and you talk about alignment and you talk about business objectives, those are underneath the SAFE framework. Yep. So do you come across organizations who are trying to, or who have implemented SAFE, and have you ever experienced a PI planning process?
I've only worked with one company that said they were using SAFE and they weren't. Half their people were trained and certified on it, and company culture just didn't allow for it to really grow. It was with a traditional healthcare company, and the SAFE method would have worked. I think it would work, but everybody was so driven on the compliance front that they just couldn't make it over that hump to maybe start adapting some of the practices. We even started working on a roadmap to get them there, and the roadmap, the engine wouldn't even start. So yeah, it's maybe somebody will bring that up again, but yeah, we couldn't get it going.
Yeah. So with all of that said, and a lot of persons in this meetup tonight, they're traditional project managers. Mm-hmm. So how are you seeing the landscape kind of change from traditional project management into now embracing Agile and all of the frameworks, the new frameworks?
Yep. I do see it's kind of a two-part question. One is, with PMI kind of like going the way of more of that Agile approach. So if anybody's seen the new PMBOK guide, it's very less about the waterfall approach and more about what makes sense. So what I'm seeing a lot more is people getting away from the theory of what the PMBOK offers and getting into the practical application, which the new PMBOK is doing a great job of putting in. You can't follow the same framework from company to company anymore. Less bureaucracy, less meetings, more getting things done, more focusing on deliverables and results than artifacts is a big one. I'm in a compliance area, so I have to have the artifacts, but like I work with my team that I will do them. I don't want my staff doing them when they should be focusing on the work to be done. So really helping identify who your SMEs, your subject matter experts are, keeping them on that. And then reducing bureaucracy and paperwork as much as you can. And then quick delivery. So show me that you're actually making progress. And that is more and more of a demand of the stakeholders and consumers that we're working with, which is a great ask because that makes us as project teams deliver faster and better. So I think there is definitely a movement towards Agile, more of Agile practices, but it's not called that. But that's what I see.
Okay, well, I would like to say thank you on behalf of those who follow you on LinkedIn. You are doing an excellent job dissecting that new PMBOK guide, and you just break it down. You read it in little sections, and you just expand on it, and so it's given more clarity to those of us who are just now embracing this new PMBOK guide. So if you haven't followed Jason on LinkedIn, Jason lets out these commentaries about his interpretation of the PMBOK guide, and it's really fascinating to follow. Does anyone else have a question? And I must say, Lee Lambert does a good job with it as well. I don't know if you saw some of Lee's posts.
Yes.
Lee wanted to be with us tonight, but he forgot he had a presentation to do in Singapore. So he was
I would have been really nervous if Lee would be here. So.
Yeah, he's going to join us sometime. He was actually our first speaker when we launched in June. So he was our first speaker, and he's been following, and he's been sending me messages of encouragement on a daily basis. So Lee is great.
Good. So yes, he is awesome. So, and you guys are awesome. You're awesome. So no, I truly appreciate it. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Jackie, I need to send you some stuff. Andrea, I'll send you this PowerPoint as well. So if you want to, give it to folks, it's all yours.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
But we still have a few more minutes. We end at 7:30, but we can leave early. But I would like to ask, Karen Ferguson Bain came after we did our icebreaker, and Tashima came after the icebreaker, and Commander Cleveland Stubbs. So if any one of you want to come on camera, I keep saying off camera, on camera, and introduce yourself. Let us know if this is your first time attending and where you're joining us from.
Good evening, everyone. I am Karen Ferguson Bain, joining you from the second city, the magic city that is Freeport, Grand Bahama, and I was invited by Jackie. So thank you very much for the invitation. And the information given was very enlightening, and I will definitely be using some of the strategies. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us from the Magic City. When you said the Magic City, my mind went straight to Disney World. Oh, that's the Magic Kingdom.
Magic Kingdom, yeah.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Karen.
Sorry, we're the city next to the kingdom.
Okay. So the second city is Freeport, Grand Bahama. Yes, I need to visit Freeport, Grand Bahama. I am overdue. I am overdue for my traveling.
Let me know when you're coming.
I definitely will. Okay. Now we have another newcomer, Tashima's iPhone.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Tashima Leslie. I am calling in from Brooklyn, New York, and I am excited to be a part of this. I'm so sorry that I joined late, but the information that was presented was so rich that I can't wait to connect with people and get more information, and hopefully come to another one of these sessions because it was so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us from Brooklyn, New York.
Fun.
Brooklyn in the house. I miss New York. So Tashima, you could send us your information so that we could keep in contact with you, because right now it says Tashima's iPhone. So if you want to type your name in the chat, we'll look you up on LinkedIn and connect with you. And our next, I shouldn't say a newcomer, but you were not here when we did our Icebreakers, Commander Cleveland Stubbs, one of my fellow commanders with the Royal Rangers Boys Club. Would you like to come on camera and say hi?
Hi, Andrea. Unfortunately, it won't be nice for me to turn the camera on, but I must say it was a good segment. I have a few questions that I'll put to you. I'm a bit shy. Now, there's one thing I have for the guest speaker. That program or the spreadsheet that he created for the project management, I'd like a copy of that, if that is possible.
Yep.
Would that be
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah, yeah. And Andrea, I'll just send, I'll send it to you if you want to just send it out to the group. So
Cleveland, you said you had a question. What's your question? Because I thought by now, after knowing you for over 20 years, you would have gotten past your shyness.
I'll hold on the question.
Okay, so you could text me later.
Yes. Okay.
So does anyone else have any questions? We have 20 minutes.
Jason, I will be honest. I think I'm one of the few people from this group and team who is not a project manager. Okay. I did implement projects, but without being a PMP. So my full experience is Agile. And from where I've been, I think that what you've mentioned is very true. Everybody has a different definition of what Agile is.
Yeah.
Not everybody, and unfortunately, there's so many different flavors of it that it could get even misconstrued. So it just proves that as Agilists, we have to make sure that that definition, that real definition, is understood so that we can take that. Now, having said that, I still think that, and I don't know if you would agree, if a company would find or be able to implement that definition, you would still understand that the teaming of, I guess, Agile and product and project owner, project management should still be there.
Yeah.
And if you don't think so, hey, just say it. I'm good with that.
No.
I'll take it how it comes, but
No.
I want to get your input on that.
No, I think I'm just, I'm thinking of how to frame it up. I love the concept of a stable team working on a specific product. So a product specific group. Because products get so complex and they need such fast turnaround to market right now, especially in the technology space, no matter what you call it, but having a product owner that can really help drive the direction of what that product. So, a traditional product manager role, but, just call it product owner, whatever, that nomenclature be, to help talk about what the strategy and the goals of that product would be, working with the project teams that are specific to that individual product to get it to where it needs to be. However you want to call it, I love the concept of a stable team on a single product, or maybe a tight-knit group of closely related products. Because to build that level of expertise on a code base or whatever it is that you're working with, plus having somebody that knows the direction is critical. So I love it when I see it, and I start to see it more and more. So, from your standpoint, definitely you play a critical role, and but requesting a stable team that works with you. I think that just make it more valuable as you went on, no matter what you called it.
Okay.
Okay, Kenny, you're up.
Hey. I So really no other real questions. I really appreciate the presentation. I am still, so strategy, that's something in the organization I am in, it's something that is constantly in the front of us. So, and that I appreciate. What right now, especially going through the pandemic, we're seeing now, and this is something I'm constantly learning, and of course, Agile playing a part in it, that constant reassessment of strategy. So basically, yes, you might have had a plan in the beginning, but the situation is changing, and it's been so dynamic and fluid throughout this entire pandemic. Just being strategic throughout that time. And as I was speaking just now, I actually had a question. What is, Andrea got so much faith in my questions, it's just amazing. My question is basically when to change. So sometimes basically we make, and that's what I've been seeing, we make these plans, and of course we make adjustments to the plan, but sometimes we make adjustments before the result can be realized, or not giving enough time for the initial strategy to be effective before switching. So I know that isn't like a concrete answer you can possibly give, but if any guideline as to what we should be looking at before we say change or pivot?
Yep. I think the big ones that I see, especially in the groups I work with, is financials. So, you know, return on investment, because the companies that I do business with mostly are publicly traded. So they need to have shareholder results. So if they are working on a project that costs a lot of money, that's not compliance related, that is costing them quite a bit, but they're starting to not see the ROI in it long term, you know, pulling the plug or going a different direction, or, you know, selling it would be another one. When you start to see a decline in market. So I'll give you an example. When the pandemic hit, so a good friend of mine owns a networking company. So he goes into these small 2,000 square foot offices and does networking for these offices, and whether they're building brand new or redoing, whatever it would be. So he had contracts 8 months out, and then January 2020 hits. All of a sudden, all his contracts, they're gone, right? So he went from 8 months to not even 8 days. So he didn't know what to do. I mean, everything, the contracts are going down. He fortunately had wiring. He had a ton of materials there. So he was wise to buy up ahead of time. So him and I got to talking. I said, well, do somebody's house, you know, and I just threw that out there. And he goes, you know what? I think I will. So his neighbor, he lives in an older neighborhood. He ended up rewiring his house because everybody's working from home. And so then that person referred him to the next person, to the next person. Then next thing you know, he is wiring somebody from Best Buy Corporation, who's a senior manager. And this guy goes, this is great, because all our other senior managers need this too, because we're all in the same neighborhood. It's all their infrastructure in these houses. Boom. He went from, 8 days and wondering how he's going to pay his workers to he's super busy again. But, he had all types of supply chain problems, that he had to deal with supplies. But anyway, but yeah, seeing a decline in the market and where you could go with it, whether taking advantage or just, stepping away from it altogether. It's really hard to say. It could be a financial conversation. It could be just what you see from your consumer group. It a lot depends, but what I've seen is there's usually not one answer. It's usually a combination of things. So depends on the organization, kind of the environment you're in.
And one final question. I know you say specifically with startups, but I know, like, especially when it comes to them, they don't get their return on investment like initially. So a lot of high front end investments, and with the hope of long-term returns. With that kind of strategy, and I see some other organizations, even more senior, like say Amazon, where they make a lot of investments initially and they pays off in the long run. My question is, how do they justify such a long-term strategy when you're not seeing the quote-unquote benefit or the quote-unquote return on investment for a good space of time?
They pivot. Oh boy, do they pivot. Normally what I see with them is they have a really good goal. They have a very good vision that they want to achieve. So that stays pretty stable. Their ultimate goal. The strategies to get there they go all over the place. But a lot of that comes from just how they learn and how they experiment, fail. Some things work, some things don't. So it depends on the success that they have along the way. So if they have a success with the strategy, then they execute on the next one. If they fail at that strategy, okay, let's replan. But ultimately their goal always stays, but the way they get there, their strategy is very ebb and flow. When I would get involved with that group is when they've taken a product to market and they've been stable state for a couple of years. They're starting to grow exponentially, and they have all these, I call it the fog of the project management, right? You got tons of stuff you want to do, but you don't know where to start. That's where I come in and can start to help them, put some priorities back in place. So, that's why I don't, because they're so product focused initially. So that's why I just stay out of it until they got a stable state.
Okay, cool. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Kenny, you are awesome with your 3 questions. We need to increase that to 5 sometimes. You're on a roll.
I'll work on it.
So Jason, I almost called you Peter. I don't know why.
That's all right.
Before you leave, I would like to just pick your brain a little bit about Kanban. Do you see Kanban being used in the companies that you consult with?
Yeah, with the product, one of the product teams I worked with, yes. I didn't see wide scale adoption on it, but yeah, I think on specific product related teams, yes. When the pandemic actually hit, my son he's very disorganized. So I actually created a Kanban board for him for his schoolwork. So every day we would just move things across the board. And so I shared it with my neighbor, and then she started doing it. And then kids went back to school, so they started doing it in school. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for Kanban boards to be used, but maybe in more product specific areas. I love them myself because I use them for some of the stuff that I do for my own business.
Yeah, you sound a lot like me. I'm becoming a little Trello guru recently.
Yes.
With all of the Trello that I've been using, and I use it with my daughter with her homeschooling as well. So she is learning Trello and using the boards and how to move and how to stay organized. So that's a big help to us.
Yeah.
And I have one more question. We have a few more minutes. I'm just trying to go to 7:30 and ask as much questions as I can while Jason is here, because I don't know when we're going to get Jason back. So my question for you, Jason, when you do your consulting work with these companies and you're trying to get them to kind of realize their business agility, do you find a lot of them incorporate decentralized decision making, or you still seeing that hierarchical structure being used?
I don't want to put people in maybe age bracket categories, but the more tenured and larger companies are very much more centralized still. The smaller companies or maybe smaller departments, divisions are much more decentralized. But I think the larger the company, the greater the bureaucracy. So if you see a lot of bureaucracy, you're going to have, decentralized decision making for sure.
Okay, my final question. I'm beating Kenny's record. What are some of your tips to unlock the intrinsic motivation of knowledge workers?
Great. That is a great question. Two things. Number one is more of the interpersonal side of it. It is getting to know them as people, creating those informal relationships and trust with that person and within the team. Just getting to know them, having conversations about who you are as a person. That starts to unlock them to share more information, be more open, be more trusting. And then the other is from a project in big picture. And this goes back to why I feel project managers should always know how the project is meeting strategic goals, is because then they can say, you as an individual contributor to this project, here's how what you deliver impacts this big, I'm watching my hands, but this big picture. So the little things that you're doing have a huge impact when you look at what our organization wants to do. And hey, what you're doing is making a huge difference. Thank you. So as people start to understand that and see how their contributions, contribute to a bigger organizational goal, that's great. And they will definitely jump into that more and more.
You're spot on, Jason. I would love to continue the conversation and talk about how culture affects work ethics. I think that's a good conversation to have, how cultures affect persons' work ethics and how it's different. For us in the Bahamas, we always say we have this relaxed culture. We're always on the beach sipping pina coladas. So that's not true. That's just the image they give us. We're not always on the beach. We actually do work. But, the cultures, they can crush a person. If you don't have the right culture within a company, it can crush the morale of an employee and they can dread going to work. And I think sometimes that's what happening with a lot of persons who even come down with sickness. We don't understand why we're just getting sick all of a sudden, but it's because we're working in a toxic environment.
Yeah, your stresses.
So, that's a conversation that's very interesting. I think I'm going to find a really powerful speaker to deliver that one. So that might be your comeback speech, Jason.
I would love to hear that one.
Yourself.
Yes, I would love to hear that one because that one would be awesome. Yes.
No, I'm not talking about hearing it. I'm talking about delivering it.
Yes. I do. And I talk about creating a successful project environment, creating a culture within your project team, despite what your organizational culture is, but organizational culture will take a person out, even your best team players. So yeah, totally agree with you.
Oh, I know it does. But I just want to bring to everyone's attention that we dropped a few times in the chat our feedback survey, because as a little community, your feedback is very important to us. We would like to know what you think about our speakers, what you think about our meetups, what you think about my new hairdo. I just got this did, and I didn't get it wet today, even though it rained. So you don't have to put that in the comment section, but I tried. So fill out our feedback survey and let us know what you think. Please let us know what topics you are interested in knowing more about so that we could set up our calendar for 2022. Jason is definitely going to be back on our 2022 calendar with an interesting, lively, and timely topic. So yes. Jason, prepare yourself.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
So I'm psyching you up for that big topic that's going to get everyone to come and participate. And hopefully, it wouldn't be about hiking and biking.
Yeah,
it's too cold where you are to do hiking cold, and biking.
But it does bring back memories of warmer days, that's for sure. So.
Yes, we're gonna swap places soon. I'm gonna take your snow and you can come and take my heat.
Done. Done.
So Omar is going to close us out. And we just want to thank Jason and say thank you to all our newcomers, our first timers. So take it away, Omar.
Well, Jason, like Andrea said, thank you for coming. It was great to listen to you and to get your insights and inputs. Kenny, you nailed it with your 3 questions, even though you were pressured. So thank you. And for those, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you. I had a great time and love the questions. Appreciate everybody.
So for those here, we have another session, and that will be, actually, we should not have that session. It falls on Thanksgiving. I think we need to reschedule that one, or are we going to have it?
No, we don't reschedule. We're going to have that, and we're going to be thankful for that session.
Okay, so for everybody here, I just realized it's on Thanksgiving Day. So
well, see, in Oman and the Bahamas, we don't really go all out for Thanksgiving like in America. We're big on Christmas Day and Boxing Day, but we may not have Jonkanu, so we look forward to Jonkanu.
Okay, my mistake. So for those on stateside, we will be having or in my case, Puerto Rico. For those there, we will be celebrating here on Thanksgiving Day, another session. So please stay tuned into our Meetup and into our LinkedIn. And please, we hope to have you here back again.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
So I'll stay warm. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Kenny. You get 4 questions next time, Kenny.
Next time.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Everyone, take care.